Let me give you 6 things you should know before making your move to Kenya and making your arrival in Kenya easier, less stressful, and less expensive than it might have been. I moved 2 years ago from Germany to Nairobi in Kenya, and since then I've been exploring Kenya, living my life here and building my business and trying to make things for you easier if you're thinking of relocating to Kenya. Therefore, we'll talk about in this video about your cost of housing, safety, social life, electricity and internet, the pace of life, and schools here in Nairobi. So let's dive directly into the topic and start with the cost of housing. Just to give you my personal expense for housing, right now I'm spending around $900, including all utilities, and I'm sharing this with 2 roommates. So in a very nice and beautiful neighborhood where my big garden grows different kinds of fruits, different kinds of herbs, and I have just a lot of freedom in this 5-bedroom house. But the thing is, you can also find apartments offering less quality for you, and there's a price range, I think, from finding an apartment, depending where you are, from around $300 to $400 all the way up to $3,000. So it really depends where you're looking at, and that you really find the right source and not someone who just wants to take advantage of you because you're just moving here and you don't know how the prices are, where to move. And sometimes even we think, because you're from a foreign country, if you're from the States, if you're from the UK, I'm personally from Germany, you will think sometimes even if you spend like $2,000 a month for an apartment, it might be still quite a steal because you're used to paying much more. But if I tell you my apartment is a bargain for this location and for this price and for the size, I think there are many different offers you can take. And this always depends on the size of the apartment you want. If you want to go for a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, you can also find apartments approximately from $600 to $900, and I think they're still very much modern and like in a good and decent location for you. But you can also spend in a similar location that might be a bit better, and the apartment is just more modernized and just more better furnished. You can spend around $3,000 as well. And I made this mistake myself when I came here first. I was spending $700 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. And this was in Levington, was still a quite good area. But I think now, because it was furnished, it was more expensive. But I think now I would have definitely make a different choice, because now the apartment I'm living in is also unfurnished. It's something I could just do because I knew I'm going to stay here long term. If you're just going to stay here for like 3 months or 6 months, it doesn't make too much sense for you to get an unfurnished apartment. But if you know you're going to stay here for long term, getting an unfurnished apartment is a better decision, because otherwise price difference of an unfurnished and furnished apartment, they are very high. And that's why you should consider getting an unfurnished apartment and just getting all the furniture yourself before spending a lot of money every month, if you are very sure that you're going to stay here for a longer time. And just a practical tip here that you can maybe avoid like spending more, because some of the agents here, sometimes they're a bit annoying and like pushing too much towards like you renting the apartment from them, or at least what I experienced once, but most of them were also okay. But what you can do, first off, you can just go into different kinds of immigrant or expat Facebook groups and post in there like what kind of apartments you're looking for and what price range, how much space you want, what areas you want to stay in, and then you just get a bunch of different offers and apartments into your DMs. At least what helped me to find my apartment today as well. And there's another tip, and the platform you can use for this is called Gigi. It's also basically like a platform where people can list everything from housing, from selling products, from whatever. You can also get the information of like how apartments look sometimes, but oftentimes also the pictures, they are not the best. So you need to still go to the apartment, go to the house. Also, last practical tip for this one, to get a good deal and get a fair apartment, and maybe to avoid also working with agents, you can go into different shopping malls like Sarit Center or Westgate. Oftentimes they have these boards there where people can just hang out the apartments that they're renting out, and you can just call the number from there and you can just make an arrangement to view the apartment yourself, because you can see things from the people themselves that can help you to get better deals than when you would just go yourself. And especially as a foreigner, oftentimes your prices are much higher than when the locals ask, and especially if you don't know what the regular prices actually are. So maybe you can ask someone you can trust. Maybe you can find someone who already like made the same step as you, that can help you on your way, at least for the first couple of steps you're going to take. And then the next point I want to talk about is safety. I get this question quite a lot, how safe it is, because sometimes people see like all these houses and apartment complexes and malls that are surrounded by fences, by electrical fences with like security, so they think it's very much unsafe here. But I made the opposite experience. Even if Nairobi used to be called Nairobi, I didn't see anything like that myself. I just heard like a few stories here and there, but not as many, I think, as it used to be. And as long as you know that you can walk around and spend time in certain areas, I think everything will be fine. And the more you adjust to the culture, when you actually make the move and when you actually spend more time like being around everywhere, you will understand where you can do what and what things you can do. So therefore, I think that the security and the electrical fences you have everywhere, they are more a method of prevention than actually things happening. So even if things can happen all the time, like in any other major city in the world, especially let's say if you're from the States, if you're from Europe, something can happen to you there all the time too. But I would consider Kenya, and I feel much safer here than in the States, for instance, where I was also spending over a year of time, where I even heard that kids that go to school, where they have to be trained in case there's a mass shooting in the school. And this is something I never heard here in Kenya. So I think I feel much, much safer here in Kenya than I was feeling in the States, for instance. So I think safety shouldn't be the biggest worry because things can happen like in any other big international city in the world. The next one I want to touch on is the social life, because I know it's not always that easy if you move from a different country to Kenya or like to any other country in the world, and it might be difficult for you to touch base with the locals, to get to know people here, to move around. And what I can calm you down with, at least from my personal experience, is that Kenya is very, very much open and very, very much easy to connect with everybody here. Yeah, a lot of free events you can attend, also like some paid events where you can meet the people that are also doing the things that you are interested in. There's, for instance, if you use Eventbrite, just to have a practical tip here as well, if you use Eventbrite, you can find certain activities where people, for instance, go into the Karura forest. It's just a very big forest within the city where people meet up and go for walks, where people meet up and go for jogs in there or like take the bicycles. You can also join runners clubs here in Kenya. They have book clubs. They have all these different things where you can meet the people that you care about. And they're in general very much friendly and very much open people that are easy to connect with. Just to be honest as well, on the other hand, you also have the case that some people trying to take advantage of you, especially if you are a Muzungu. It means basically just like a white person, a foreign person. They want to take an advantage of you because you are not from here and they know that you have some, or they think that you have some more money at least. So you need to just understand how people are, where you can find the right people, and then everything will get much, much easier. But what you can definitely do, just go to these certain kinds of events that you actually care about, and you will find the people that have the same interests as you do. But even if socializing and meeting people is easy, there's another side of it, and this is the pace of life here sometimes. When I came here for the first time and spent here the first couple of months, I had to adjust a lot, especially because I'm from Germany and we are always on time. We try to keep time as much as possible because we value everybody's time a lot. But what I realized here in Kenya, people are just moving on their own time. They're just not stressed at all. They can tell you we will meet at 5 p.m. Sometimes if you're lucky, they come like 30 minutes later, 60 minutes later, and sometimes even later than that, and depending on what kind of purpose the meeting is for. If it's a business meeting, they are more on time, but still come late. And sometimes see, even if people are very friendly, very open, and very are much in the hustler mentality and ready to do things, sometimes it's just very much slow. So just that you're also aware of this side of the life. But I think at some point, if you get used to it and don't try to be living the same life as you used to from the States, from Europe, from Germany, from wherever, you will get adjusted, and then also things will get much, much easier for you. The next thing I want to talk about is the electricity and the internet connection here. Kenya is one of the most advanced countries, I would say, here on the African continent in terms of internet technology and in terms of like having a reliable connectivity structure with power. And this is what I see as well here. Most of the time, you have a great connection with internet. You're also always connected to power, but every now and then it can occur what's then a bit negative if you need to work, if you need electricity and internet to work, that the power can just be cut for a couple of hours or a couple of days in a bad case. Even I think it was last week, I had a power cut for 2 whole days, and I'm lucky because the place I'm living in also offers a backup generator. But it was also the case before that the generator was broken, so I had no power for a day, for half a day, for 2 days. And because I rely heavily on the internet for my work, it was a little bit of a pain for myself, so I had to leave the house and need to find a place that has a backup generator. But luckily, most of the malls, most of the restaurants and cafes, they offer backup generators, so they're always on to power. And this also could influence the decision where you're going to live, because you need to look out for apartments that offer backup generators in case you rely heavily on the internet, just to make things more convenient and be sure on the sure side for you. And in terms of the internet, Kenya is very far advanced. Just I made a speed test a couple of days back at my apartment, and I had an upload speed of like 39 Mbps per second, and I had a download speed of like 50 or 60 Mbps. So it's quite very fast, to be honest, and I have a fiber home connection here, so I can't complain about this one. The only issue with this one, on the other hand, now is that it also cuts every now and then. And a couple of days back, I had like for 2 days no internet connection because there was something broken outside with the cables. So I had to wait for them to come and fix it. So I had to provide internet from my phone to my laptop, but I still made it work. So it's not the biggest problem. It just can be sometimes annoying, especially if you're working with like large files, have to download them and upload them every now and then. It can be a little bit of a pain as well sometimes. But most of the time, if you go outside in the cafe, they offer stable internet connection. If you have a good connection like with Safaricom, well, most of the time you should be on the safe side using them. And in any other case, what I'm also thinking about now is like maybe even getting Starlink to just be not depending on Safaricom, because this case happens that you just are cut off from the internet every now and then, and I want to avoid this happening just to get a more reliable source. The thing is, it actually now got just cheaper than the monthly fee I pay for my Safaricom internet. And so that's why I'm even thinking about changing it now. So at least that you know you have the opportunity to switch away from the local providers in case you want to, and you are like self-reliant with using Starlink. And if the apartment you live in has a backup generator, you're even more on the safe side. The next thing I want to talk about are schools, because I know some of you might come with your family, you bring kids with you that still need to go to school, and you're wondering how the system works, how everything is. At least for me, it was the case in Germany. Most of the school system is free. You don't pay much or you don't pay anything at all. But I met quite a lot of people, and I have some family that came here as well, and their kids needed to go to school. So I saw from this case how the school system works here a little bit. And what I realized here is that schools are working a little bit more like a business here in Kenya. So you really need to be on the lookout for the right school for your kids. Prices for schools also range very, very heavily depending on what they offer and what areas you're in and what kind of name they have. For instance, there's a school I was visiting just to get an image myself, and I think they wanted around $2,200 for every 3 months your kid go to school there, and they had even nothing special to offer. The only thing I think, at least from my perspective, what they had was the name, but everything else was offered by any other school that was cheaper that we looked at as well. So I was wondering why they are so expensive. But on the other hand, you also have schools that are a little bit cheaper, where you pay maybe approximately like $750, $1,000 per 3 months for your kids, and that they offer the same things and even offer more quality. So you should really be on the lookout for what schools are like supporting the things you want for your child, because some of them oftentimes also work like the school system in America. So you have a lot of extra activities after school, and most of them are heavily into sports, chess classes, into any kind of instrument classes. So like you can offer your kids a lot of creativity projects outside of the regular learning in school. And this is what I think is quite interesting and quite beneficial for the kids. So if you have the money, if you're planning to send your kids here to school, I think it's even more advanced and living than the schools are much better than I think, to be honest, than in Germany. Because I also never spent time in an American school, I cannot judge by this, but at least from the things I saw in Germany, they're more advanced. And they're even offering here IT classes, different kinds of language classes that is mandatory for you to learn Swahili. It's also mandatory for you to learn English, but also they make it mandatory for you to learn another third language, and this even from a very, very low grade. And this is what I think is very, very much important. When I think of my time in Germany, when I was in school, I almost learned no English when I was going to school, even after I finished. So I had to learn English outside of school when I was traveling to different countries and like just putting more effort into my English abilities. And I think this is very far advanced, that you learn different languages here, that you also get IT classes here. I think the money in the end of the day is worth it, because your kid can just develop themselves a lot in different kinds of fields. If it's sports, if it's IT, if it's learning instruments, if it's learning languages. So they offer you just a bunch of different things that your kid could benefit from as well. So just make sure that you don't just go for the most expensive if you want to, because you think it might be the best school. So just to get a conclusion out of this, I think Nairobi offers everything you need when you're moving here. And I think it's a place that supports all your needs in terms of development. You have everything here. You have all these different activities. You have reliable power. You have reliable internet connection. You have amazing people here. You have fair priced housing. You have basically everything you need. You just need to figure out if you can live with the smaller country on the other side, if you're not used to things like this. But overall, I would say I am very happy with the life I'm living here. I can overlook some of the smaller downsides, like the power cuts every now and then, because you have so many upsides, and at least personally for me, that's what I think. And now please drop me in the comments below, what are your concerns about moving to Nairobi, that we can maybe solve them as a community, and like tell you how you can avoid making different mistakes, or like how we can take the fear from you. I appreciate you watching, and all the best, and see you soon in Nairobi.